We do have 11:01, so I will call the meeting to order. And if we could begin with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I know Louise had a couple of items she asked to fill in the blanks. I'm not sure if someone was able to do that for her.
The only thing, so she had highlighted one area about what sector-specific guidelines we're using and what the date was. I might have messed it up when I talked about it at the last meeting, but it's technically April 28th, and I know that that was highlighted in her minutes, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, great. Any questions at all, or
Tom?
Yes.
Tom, this is Joe Manus. The one thing that I did is, it's the group that Louisa was referring to in the minutes that she didn't have the formal name for was the Friends of the Manhan Rail Trail. And I sent her a separate reply with that information.
Perfect.
So she's good on that.
Okay. Okay, so with those additions to the minutes, are there any other additions or deletions, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, I think Louise just showed up, so I admitted her, so she should be coming. We could quickly recap maybe on that.
Louise, are you there? You're muted right now, but.
Okay.
Louise, did you get those blanks filled in from the minutes that you needed filled in?
I did. My apologies. I can forward them to Brendan after the meeting. I'm visiting my daughter, and they are literally moving house today. It was the last minute, so I'm in a little bit of chaos.
No problem. We're just about ready to approve the minutes with those additions that I know Joe sent you and Brendan. So again, I think I have a motion from Pat Bruff to approve the minutes, and a second from Joe. Any other discussion? All in favor? Just a wave is good.
Aye.
Thank you. That was unanimous. Louise, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Apologies.
And then public speak. Brendan, is there anyone out there?
Let me just check really quickly. I've got no one from the public.
Thank you. All right, we're going to jump ahead to new business so we can let the mayor get on to a call she's expecting. So, Mayor, it's all yours. And you're muted, right?
Good morning. Yeah. You think I would, we all would, understand, how to unmute. So anyways, Thank you very much for the time on your agenda. I wanted to talk to the board and just give them an update. We have an opportunity to build out a new council on aging. Right now, we have one bid coming in that will be Manchester Hardware. I'm not sure of other bids. I sent the RFP and a sample lease just to let you know what was out in the public on the state RFP website. So it's out there. We reran the legal ad yesterday because the original RFPs were due by June 3rd. The RFP is asking for proposals around 11,000 square feet. And because it's so many feet, we needed to extend it to June, I think it's 23rd. What you see in the RFP is not dictating what, if we can figure out how to do this, what exactly the project will look like. There's a lot of negotiation back and forth. This is just for the space itself. What we've asked for are proposals to lease space for a long term that is designed out to actually the specs that Brendan provided at a walkthrough. So this RFP is for space. And then under Massachusetts, once that's awarded, under Massachusetts general law, we will do an RFP for design. of what it looks like inside to the specs that again, Brendan provided. We were hoping to get all of the RFPs like responded to and have proposals so we could really start crunching numbers and figuring out if the city can afford it. We just need to get the bids. And I was hoping to actually have some hard numbers to share with the group. But as soon as I do, I certainly will get a hold of the board and maybe depending on where the space is, we, happy to give a tour and Brendan can walk through the space and explain. The reason why I'm pursuing a long-term lease, because I've looked at building out senior centers and actually libraries, and we would be low on that list to build a new COA. One. Two, I really feel strongly that the Council on Aging needs to stay downtown in our downtown district because that's where it needs to stay. I think it's really in line with the culture of our downtown, and it's very accessible with bikes, grocery store, pharmacy, and coffee shops and stuff like that. So that's my I want to leave time for questions, but that's what I have to report out this month of where we are in the process.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Questions, comments from the board? Stan?
Are we talking about all of the buildings and the property, or just the main hardware store building?
So the hardware. So we're in an RFP process, so we can't assume what property it would be.
Okay.
But if it would be, hypothetically, Stan, it would be the new addition of Manchester is about 11,000 square feet. And then the other side of it, which I can actually speak to is going to happen, will be a senior and mental health clinic that's run by the Center for Human Development. And the Center for Human Development bought the whole property on June 9th. They close.
Nice.
So, yeah, I was hoping to have the exact site and an accepted proposal by now. And it's actually the call I'm waiting from the state to talk about the design RFP, our next step, to be very clear what we can do with that agreement.
And that, Mayor, can start right after the 23rd. Let's assume for a moment that this is the only response we get to the RFP. Then I assume the design RFP could go out pretty quickly.
Yes, absolutely. I would not be surprised. I know that the Center for Human Development, which now owns that whole property, they are starting the build out now, and they want where their clinic is. They would like to turn it around in 9 months.
Nice.
So they want that open for their use, and then we'll see how strong their bid proposal is.
So wherever the RFP lands us, if it's here or somewhere else, yeah. You presumably got to find money in the city budgets to be able to do the build out?
Well, that's, we would consider a lease that would include build out and do a triple net lease.
Okay. To
keep the payments low over a 20 or 30 year lease, with the city having the option every 10 years to opt out. Like, who knows, in 10 years, there might be a ton of money for a new senior center, and the will of the town is we want a new senior center. Yeah. So I didn't want to tie the city for 30 years straight up in this.
Yep.
And so it's 10, 10, and 10. So yeah, construction, it's a different type of spending. It doesn't come out at all from the Council on Aging operation budget. And we would put a new senior center under building operations and pull like building operations or whatnot. I think what we would do is pull it more into DPW and building operations because it's a triple net lease. So it would save a little money. It will. I don't have obviously the details. I need to get this year's budget passed. But I can safely say that if we come to a deal, it'll be more than what the COA like budget is now for a space. But I'm fine with that because I hope this isn't too blunt, but Easthampton's average age will, goes up to the senior population, and it'll be 40% by 2025. And I think that we need to put some more spending, quite honestly, into the Council on Aging and facilities. Brendan and the crew do an amazing job with that space. But when you think about the numbers going up so fast, that space really cannot accommodate the usage that we're going to see. So I'm fine with the shifting, and I've been talking to the city councilors and whatnot of what that looks like. So I wish I had some more numbers of talent or like kind of walking you through the financials of how we're going to do this. But I just don't have them yet, unfortunately.
I guess the financials in one sense are sort of a moot point to us if it's going to be neutral to the overall COA operating budget. It's more about, your overall budget and the city's ability to afford that lease payment.
Yes. Yeah. Nope. Absolutely.
Brendan.
I was just curious. So do you think that this could be, like, say if we don't secure a new building, can you imagine this being a place for us over the next few decades? I mean, I just, the only thing I worry about is, having a change of ownership with the building or whatever the case may be, and then finding ourselves in a situation where we're out of a space,
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, something has to be done. This opportunity was presented. The idea was presented to us kind of out of the blue. And, if this proposal, again, it's an opportunity / series of proposals to put out publicly. If for some reason this particular proposal or structure of proposal is too expensive, we would continue to look for space. And I wouldn't say, nothing's firm, but I would expect it to be a lease, just because we haven't finished bonding for the school, and we're going to do some solar work around the city, and that will probably be a bond too. So I'm not looking to bond for a city senior center anytime soon. And we would look for other lease space. I am very partial to keeping the COA on the street it is. I think it really works. I don't want to see senior center put out in a silo.
I think, Brendan, to your point, that issue is usually covered in the lease agreement. So, like a lot of times I've seen them where they're written where it'll say our lease is with CHG and or its successors. So basically, if somebody were to buy the building from CHG, they're stuck with us.
Exactly.
So that the lawyers will build that in, so we don't
absolutely.
I've seen those with our bank branches. If an owner sells the bank building, he's not going to boot the bank out. Let's face it. So, and Nicole, if you can get, sorry, Mayor Nicole, is it okay to call you Nicole?
Yeah.
If you can get 310s, that's phenomenal. Normally, the lessor, will want something like 10 and then 5s, so that gives them an ability to reset based on economic conditions. But if you can get 310s, that would be great.
We were pretty. There was the question and answer period during the RFP period. And I was really firm about this is a big shift in money for us. And it honestly, Tom, it's not going to work if it needs to be at least a 20-year lease, and just where we are with space and building costs. If we don't get a 30-year lease right now, I'm not 100. I am very unsure if we can make this work money-wise for the city.
I think the 30-year lease is reasonable. I'm just not sure how many renewals they'll want along the way.
Yeah, and I've talked about the structure. We actually talked about that in the RFP itself, and the sample lease leaves it there. And a couple of the questions from different people looking at it asked exactly about that, and I said we're really firm on a 30-year lease, a 10 and a 10 and a 10. So,
perfect.
No one can be, whoever gets the RFP, if we award, no one is going to be surprised. The proposal we pick, if we do, will look massive because it'll be a yearly rent, right? And there's a lot of different pieces to it. So, there'll be sticker shock, to say the least, but the design bid comes in, and, what I'd like to do is negotiate a lease price, and hopefully we'll get some bids from build out folks that have worked with CHD or have some agreement with CHD, because they do this a lot. They did it up in Greenfield, that we can combine that lease payment, like make a down payment, and then have the design and the monthly and stretch it out 30 years. That's like my best financial situation for this. Of course, there are no guarantees, and I don't know what the rent's coming back as.
Yep.
And if somebody wants to see how this works, and drive to Greenfield, CHD did this with the Greenfield Senior Center. Only I think they built a whole building. It was a building and they totally did it down to the studs. It won't be the case here. The building will have a kitchen. It will have a community space to use, when COA doesn't want it, not all their space, but a designed community room. We also are going after FEMA money to make it a day shelter if there was something like a microburst again, or there was some kind of calamity and we needed a place for Red Cross or, public safety to set up. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about big, 6-alarm fires, a microburst, flooding, something that rises to FEMA levels, not MEMA. So that 3 use will also allow us, FEMA for sure is a steady stream of income for that building that will also help the city. It's not huge, but it's something we can count on every year, because FEMA gives you a certain amount of money to keep the premise up to snuff, to their qualification. Chief Norris feels really good, to have a FEMA shelter in the downtown district. He really likes the idea. It's close to public safety, and he feels very confident he will get funding for it.
Nice. I think too, just thinking quickly about this, and I know there could be other responses to the RFP, but just thinking about this location, as you said, downtown, still on Union Street, but what it adds for us, I think, is, parking,
Yes.
and all on one floor, as opposed to some things downstairs and some, I'm assuming, Brendan, in the 11,000 square feet, we counted the use of the space downstairs also. So, one floor is a great thing.
Yeah. And there's, there's other, if, that new addition is a huge triangle, and then maybe some of the back space will be the kitchen or whatnot, but there's other space in that building that could still be on one floor for whatever reason we wanted to expand in coming years. So if that were to be the best proposal, we've got a very willing landlord.
Nice. Other comments, questions?
The only thing that I want to just ask is I know that Michael Owens will be reaching out to us soon, I would imagine, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Because, this is brand new territory for me. And I know that Tom had some experience with the school building, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
So I know that'll be a great support, going into it. But anything that should be noted or that I should be thinking about before Michael touches base with us?
So yeah, the proposals come in. We have a small team. You're one of them. I don't know if anybody's asked you yet, Tom, but I think you're going to be asked to. And they'll review. That team of 3 will review the RFPs to very specific criteria to score the proposal, and choose which one out of multiple proposals is the best and highest use for what our RFP asked for. So it's really just walking in, reading it with your expertise, Brendan, and then Michael will give you a score sheet. And 3 people talk it through, and then they score each section of the proposal, matching it against those questions which come from the RFP.
And is the process the same for the RFP for the design build out?
Yes.
Perfect.
And the design RFP, it's really fantastic because Brendan has kind of like the layout of what it looks like, and whoever gets the design RFP needs to work with an ADA accessible expert architect. So it's not a back and forth, and we're not having to bring in a consultant to say, does this meet ADA? Which is great, and will save us money if we get as far as design.
Sounds exciting.
It is. It's a lot of little steps, and we're, looking hard, and certainly I'm, already figuring out a finance plan, and making, just different assumptions of what rent could be and what it looks like if it's stressed out and all of that. So it's not like we're going to get the proposal and that calculation is going to start for the first time. Jen and I've been working through different scenarios.
Yep. Okay.
So it sounds like, CHD is already doing this in Greenfield. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So they already have kind of a basic footprint. Have you been able to talk to the Greenfield COA to see, do the things that we're hoping for, do they look like they're things that have been done in Greenfield, or are we reaching a little farther than what they already have? Just trying to figure out the confidence level of okay, they know they did this up here, so we should be able to make that work here in Easthampton, and this is how. That's just my question.
I've actually been there several times because it's a community meeting room in off hours.
Yeah.
The building up there is more house-like, it's not a big square.
Yeah.
It's all in one floor, and it's totally, it's really nicely done. It's sturdy. It's not fancy, so it's really wearing the test of time. But it's well thought out. It's very usable, friendly space. And I have, this can be done. And
Okay.
I would assume any other proposal, because of just the specs for something like a senior center are so specific. We're not expecting proposals from newbies, so to speak. We're expecting proposals from people who have done this, specifically people who have built affordable housing or senior housing, people who have built smaller nursing homes, that sort of thing. It would be surprising if just a general contractor really could put forward a very informed proposal for this, but they're welcome to.
Any other questions, comments from the board? I think that's it, Nicole. Thank you very, very much for the update.
Yeah, thank you. And if you guys read something in the paper or hear something around town, and you're like, wait a minute, of course, invite me to a board meeting. Brendan always, we're always checking in about stuff we find out about to just kind of set the record straight between fact and fiction. And, obviously, but I don't want to assume. So this proposal, the RFP and whatnot, it's all public. So folks, if they go digging for the RFP, it's not like people don't know we're trying to do this. And it's on the website, it's on the state website, and it's being pushed out. So there's no secrets. It's all out there.
And I guess it's public now that one of the respondents to the RFP is the new owners of the Manchester property.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Great.
Exactly. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And again,
Thank
any
you.
questions? Yep. Bye.
Thanks, Nicole.
Louise?
Okay. We'll go back to where we were on the agenda with the financial report, Brendan.
Louise has her hand raised, so I wasn't.
Oh, I don't see.
Yes. I do. I don't have video right now. My apologies. Anyhow, I was going to comment that in the interest of transparency, maybe not yet, but in a few weeks, if this information is public, should some of it be made public by the COA on the Facebook page, almost inviting, letting the wider community out there, which is a lot of different type of people, this kind of get an inkling that this is coming, rather than waiting till everything's set up. Yeah.
Joe? Did you have your hand up, Joe? Joe?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Joe, you're muted.
It would seem that since the initiative here is coming from the mayor's office, in my mind, it would be probably preferable for the mayor's office to raise this at the point at which they feel it's appropriate, as opposed to us trying to sort of like jump in there and do it on our schedule. That's my only thought.
No, I would agree. And I would think at a minimum, Brendan and the mayor could potentially do a joint press release. But press releases have been coming out of the mayor's office lately, like 2 or 3 a week on different topics. So, it's up to Brendan, I think, if he wants to reach out. But Stan?
Yeah, I wanted to suggest that we could save the recordings that we're doing, like the recording today with the mayor, and future recordings for meetings that we do, and put together, a program to broadcast on Easthampton Media about how this whole developed and where it's going, and So I mean, we will have this recording, with us and the mayor, and the next time we do it, we can connect them all together into a single video presentation as the project progresses, and we can do updates and PSAs and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there used to be the weekly mayoral updates, and that would probably be a great opportunity for her to talk on it, and then have myself and maybe one other person from the board. Louise?
I think that's a great idea. I hadn't thought of the video. Agreeing with that, just also thinking that at some point we should start publicizing some of the softer information, not the full press release and everything, but just the kind of things that people who might see them, just so that it got out there, and people who are different community groups and different people, rather than the same old usual, would start hearing about it, because this sounds great. Personally, I'm very pleased that it's in the center, and I really hope it goes ahead. But at the first meeting I went to, was clear that we're only now in contact, that Brendan is only in contact with about half the seniors now. And given that fact that 40%, I just think we need wider outreach of the softer kind.
Yeah. And, I know that you had mentioned kind of a timeline of a few weeks out from now. And I think if the mayor can start collecting definitive information on where this is going. My only concern would be jumping ahead too early, then putting this information out there, and then the public saying, oh, this new building, is it, it's happening, right? And then if this doesn't work out for whatever reason, I want to closely follow what the mayor's office is putting out and making sure that we have consistent language with whatever's coming out of her office.
Yeah, Brendan, I'd go back to Joe's point. I think the mayor, with all due respect to us and this board, I think the mayor's driving this bus right now. And I think we need to be followers more than leaders with information until we know a lot more definitive stuff, if you will. I think the biggest thing for you to prepare for, Brendan, and or the board is to answer the question, why? Why would we be moving, 200 yards down the street?
Right.
And all the positive, what's wrong with the current senior center, and why are we moving just from 19 Union Street down to whatever number Union Street it is? That might be the biggest question on people's minds. Why?
Right. Yeah. When the legal notice went out in the Gazette, I've had a couple of people ask me about it. So those questions have already started to generate from some people who just keep an eye on the legal section. It hasn't been many, but there are some people who do keep a close eye on that. And Mike Superson was actually one of the first people to ask me.
Yeah.
So he was keeping an eye on it, and he said, oh, you guys might be getting a new center. And it's weird. Of course, I love the idea of having a new center. We're working out of a 1931 post office. So I think given where the 2020 census is bringing us and what we know of our population, it's time. But I'm also trying to be cautious and not get so caught up in it that I, give any kind of, impression that we are landing this for sure. Because, we're still in the very beginning stages and we just don't have enough details,
Agreed. Okay, let's jump ahead to the financial report, Brendan.
Yeah, let me get the share screen back up.
Because there's one person in this group that's still working for a living. Oh, no, Brendan would be too.
Oh.
Fish in the pat.
Get included, eh? All right. So here is can you guys see this?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me just make sure. Oops. 1 second. What is this? Anybody else see the
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay, all right. I don't know what's going on here. Share screen. Okay.
I'll just hold it up for you.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know what's going on. I just had the share screen going and now I can't. I don't know.
That's all right. Go ahead. Well, if you want to go ahead, I have it printed out. If anybody else, I don't know if anybody else has theirs opened.
Well, Pat, you can confirm. I don't know why this is happening. So our total percent right now is 90.41, right?
Yeah.
So I think areas that we're probably not going to exhaust certain line items that won't be exhausted will probably be the in-state travel mileage reimbursement. So that's line item 001.5410.5710. Did someone have a question? I'm sorry, I'm looking at this sheet and I didn't.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so that's the only line item that I don't anticipate exhausting. The professional services budget, which is all of our Xerox and Connecticut business systems, we'll probably have a little bit money left over from that. But each year we have to give it just a tiny bit more because our lease agreement just climbs up by $5 or so. We've covered that. That's never been a line item that we've had to worry about. And as we're closing out the fiscal year, I think pretty much we will have gone through most of our personnel line items. But other than that, I think we're in good standing. We're not at risk of tanking the funding at all as we close out the fiscal year. So again, we're not, given what we're heading into for the next fiscal year, we'll, have to just continue to be a little bit tighter, but nothing to worry about. Again, we lost $4,000. I think we can manage with that. But yeah, that's it on the financial report.
I agree with what he said.
Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah.
Pat, anything new on Highland Valley? I wasn't sure you guys were meeting right now anyway, but
We are still meeting. No, not much
Good.
to add today.
okay, great, thanks.
There's a lot of discussion about the other COAs and how their reopening plans are, kind of taking shape. So there's a lot of very similar conversations that we're having here.
Yeah, good. Tax work-off program, senior tax work-off program. Brendan, Joe, want to weigh in anything?
The only thing I'll say to it is I've received, a handful of applications, which I'll be sending over to Jen Gallant just to go through and make sure that they are financially eligible. They asked that stuff start being transferred over to their department to screen out applicants. But I haven't seen an overwhelming amount of applications coming in, and I know that a bunch of people have inquired about it. So I'm hoping that this will, start changing over the next week or so. But either way, I want to start taking the applications now and start processing them, because I do want to hit the ground running with interviews within the first 2 weeks of July. Mm-hmm. But Joe, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add there.
The only thing I'll add is that I had some discussion with people on the Friends of the Manhan Rail Trail as far as creating a position sort of within Parks and Rec, but the position that would focus on doing work on the rail trail. And I think this is sort of a diplomatic initiative, and I think we're making some progress. But until we reach something a little more concrete, I don't think it'd be beneficial to really go into it. But eventually, as I understand that that it's the city that owns the rail trail and that ultimately has responsibility for fixing it up. And in the past, it's been the Friends who have shouldered a lot of the burden. And I think over the next couple of years, we're going to try to move some of that from the Friends, a 501c3 over to the Parks and Rec folks, and have the city play the more direct role in that. But it's going to be a little bit of a cultural shift.
And one thought when we're talking about public relations here or getting information out, one thought that just came to mind, Stan, that we could maybe do as a story would be great somewhere down the road to do a success story. Maybe interview a couple of seniors who took part. A couple of seniors who not only took part but got the $1,500 advantage on their taxes and how that helped them, and
Sure.
Sort of a human interest story with some folks that participated. That might help to motivate others to get involved. Joe?
Yeah, I would. I think you're right on the money on that. And in terms of the 9 positions that we have, I don't feel that we have to fill them all at the same time. But as applications come in and it looks like people are well suited for certain of those positions, especially the outside positions that involve working outside or gardening or something, I think we need to try to get those filled, and then therefore those will be the stories that we can put out there, and that could even be used to encourage more people to apply for some of the other positions as well.
Agreed. Great. Okay, Brendan.
All right. So all of you have the reopening plan. I had sent it off to Bree. I'm happy to go over it. I know that some people had some questions and concerns about it. So I can open the floor to whoever wanted to talk about the reopening plan. But yeah, so I'll leave that. I know Stan and possibly Louise had some questions about the reopening plan.
I'm gonna I did have some questions. And I know this is a big concern, but speaking even personally, I don't want to go, as a senior, I don't want to go in a building that has some vaccinated people and may well have some unvaccinated people. That's a big one. I'll also add that I know Well, Baker's done. I know we're hitting July 1st or whatever, but at the same time, some people know I have a lot of family in England, including grandkids. Delta is over 90% of their infections now, and they're rising. In the United States, we don't know because we don't test and keep track, and it's just a different health system. So there's no way of knowing in this country. And Pfizer is only 80% effective. So these are facts that may come over here, may not. I just think that even though they're foreign facts, everybody knows the horrendous disaster that India's gone through. I would just, speaking not just as work personally, I would just like to see ways for us to go slower and more cautiously. And that's about it, especially from my position today.
Thanks, Louise. Stan, did you have any comments?
I pretty much shared all my comments with the whole group accidentally when I possibly shouldn't have, but I still have the reservations that I presented earlier in the email, and I definitely agree with Louise. And I don't see how we can do effective tracing if we don't know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't, and if we don't require them to let us know in the same way that we have to all submit doctors' reports in order to use the exercise room to make sure that we're safe in there. I think that carries over to vaccination as well. I mean, I don't see that as any more intrusive than the information from doctors for using the exercise facilities.
Brendan, Bree has pretty much blessed this plan.
Well, she said that she's fine with the way it stands, with the exception that the language that I used with the mask requirement be that, and again, I know that this is going to be what the response will probably be to this, but she had mentioned that she would want to see us not recommend that people who are unvaccinated wear a mask, but that they have to wear a mask. Again, how do you reinforce that when you're not collecting vaccine cards? And so the problem, and I know that I mentioned this in an email, and again, like Stan had said, I should have waited till today. But, I was trying to be responsive to what Stan's concerns were. But I think with the city, as it stands right now, someone can, starting July 1st, walk into City Hall, vaccinated or unvaccinated, and choose to wear a mask or not, because they're not collecting cards at City Hall. I have yet to see, and I could be wrong, I have yet to see any businesses that I've been to that have required a vaccination card, for their patrons or, people that they're dealing with, to have them in order to go into a building or a place of business. So I'm kind of in the situation where I feel as a city employee, I can choose to, because they're not collecting vaccination cards for city employees. I know I'm fully vaccinated, and I will wear a mask when people come in here, because I just feel like I need to set that kind of message from my end. But, technically I can, as long as I'm fully vaccinated, I can go without a mask, according to city and, even higher, the federal government and what have you is saying that we can go without a mask. And so I feel weird. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel conflicted about telling seniors who are coming in here that, oh, I can do one thing, but you can't. You can't do what I'm doing. And so I feel like then it gets into a place where I'm telling grown adults what they can or cannot do when they're not seeing that in the rest of the community.
Well, every sign I've seen on retail establishments, including the bank I went to this morning, said the signs all say, to our vaccinated customers, we don't need to wear a mask. They're trying to put a positive spin on it rather than say, if you're not vaccinated, you need to wear a mask. I might be being a little naive about this, but my thought has been that if you're not vaccinated and you're not going to wear a mask, you're the one at risk, not me.
That's not entirely true.
Well, just let me finish that thought, Stan, and then feel free to jump in. But being vaccinated doesn't mean I will not get the virus. It means that I won't get it as severely, presumably, I won't get it as severely as someone who hasn't been vaccinated. So my daughter has been fully vaccinated. She was just out of work 3 days for a wicked cold. I mean, a wicked head cold. And her work required her to get a negative test to come back. I get it. That's fine. But, could it have been the virus? I guess it could have been. But I'm assuming that by being vaccinated, I'm going to get the virus less severely than someone who hasn't been vaccinated. And that's what I meant, Stan, by the unvaccinated person who chooses to not be honest and not wear a mask is actually putting themselves more at risk than they're putting me at risk.
I don't think we know enough about the virus and the variants to say that absolutely. I mean, look at what happened in India. Look at what's going on now in the UK, where they're talking about complete shutdown again. So, I mean, and they have, significant vaccination rates, but there's always a chance. And we're dealing exclusively with a vulnerable population. And that's why I think we need to look at it differently than a retail establishment who's looking at it because they need customers, to stay in business. So I am still concerned, and I never go out of the house without a mask, even though I've been fully vaccinated since sometime in mid-March. But I still don't feel that I am 100% secure.
Yep, I understand that, Stan. Totally understand.
And I think what we're going to probably see, too, is that half of our participants, well, I don't want to say half, but certainly I think there's going to be a lot of people who, will want to wait a little bit longer. And so I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on people coming into the building. As we have these measures in place or, soon to be, I would anticipate that we're going to have some drop off in numbers. So that is something else to keep in mind. And so, and this is something that I really want to emphasize. Obviously I'm not a public health expert. And we're also in this weird place where, COAs have essentially been asked to create reopening plans, and that the city can either approve or turn down or reject a reopening plan. But really the state has kind of left us to our own devices. I mean, because, today, technically, right? The state of emergency is being lifted. So people are seeing that everything's opening up. And, again, I have no background in creating reopening plans based on a pandemic that we're just kind of getting out of. So, this is a weird position for me to be in, and watching what's happening around us in the community and then watching what our own city government's doing. It's a tricky place, and I don't know. I think this is kind of a middle ground reopening plan. Do I think it's perfect? No. But it's hard. It's hard to sit there as a city department to say in one setting of our city. And keep in mind, I think in congregate settings, which we are not part of, we're not defined as a congregate setting. Now, if we were dealing with a place like an assisted living facility or a nursing home, yeah, there's totally different standards there, or in any aspect of healthcare. But here, people are coming in for one event or maybe two events. Maybe they'll go to the fitness center, but we're not housing these individuals, right? With that being said, people can choose. I mean, unlike an assisted living facility, those folks have no other option. They have to live in that, and they can't go anywhere else. Whereas the senior center, we're open public space, And just like going into a concert right now, or maybe some other event, people can choose to opt out. You know, that's their choice, and I get it. And I totally respect anybody who's not comfortable going out into the community yet. There are a lot of reasons why people wouldn't want to. But we have to have this jumping point, and, you know, and we may find out that within the first month or two of reopening that we have to, you know, switch everything back, and we may end up in a lockdown. You know, I just don't know the answers.
I think, Pat.
Brendan, I think, you know, I'll say first, you've done a great job. You've done a great job with this, putting together something, whether it's perfect or not, and it's never going to be perfect. And I think you're taking into account all of the things, you know, that are important, or coming from this, you know, as the director, as the person who is there every day and that is going to have to deal with this every day. I think you've done, and also you're considering, you know, the viewpoints of as many as you can. You know, you've done that with this document. I don't, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that people are going to come in there if they're not vaccinated and not sign the sign-in sheet, at least give you an idea. Do I think somebody's going to come in there you know, unvaccinated, and not wear a mask just because they can? Probably, but that's, I think, going to happen just about anywhere you go. It's happening, you know, in our office today, probably, you know. So I think you're doing this document, you know, has the best, I think you've put together the right bits and pieces to at least start the process of getting us back open, or getting you back open and having people in there. I completely agree that, you know, that there is a chance for someone to come in there with COVID and you know, and cause problem. But how do we avoid that without not opening the doors at all? I don't know how we do that.
And I think, Pat, just to piggyback on that, I think the good news, Brendan, is that you're going to be able to get your feet wet with this, with a trickle of people. It's not like on July 1st, you're going to open the door and there's going to be a line waiting out front.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if you get 10 people in there the first day you're open, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a chance to get your feet wet with it little by little.
Yeah, and again, we're going to be following the Department of Public Health, and of course what the state is putting out there. I think Massachusetts, in comparison to a lot of other states, has been, you know, pretty conservative in their approach with reopening compared to some other states. I'm not saying that we're, you know, but I think, you know, I don't know. I think, you know, obviously this decision would never, you know, if we've got to roll back, that's going to be underneath the monitoring and supervision of Bree and her team. You know, she's going to be honest. And there are some things that she just didn't want to see here yet, which was, you know, eating or, you know, having any type of luncheons inside the center. And we're okay with that. You know, and I don't want to be serving food here. And as long as Highland Valley can continue to allow us to do those grab and go meals, we're going to keep on doing that. I think it's been hugely successful in the pandemic, and that's something that we don't plan on bringing back in. Although I think Highland Valley will eventually be looking to start meals up at the centers again. It is talks that are going on. I don't know if you've heard anything, Pat, from Highland Valley in regards to that. Probably not, but
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. I mean, eventually that's going to be something that we're going to have to discuss with Highland Valley.
Yeah.
But for now, everything will be off-site and grab-and-go meal. And I want, you know, people to know that this is fluid, right? You know, and the thing that I had mentioned in the reopening plan is that nothing is permanent here. I don't have the answers. I have no idea where we'll be come fall. I mean, certainly that's a concern that I have when people are getting sick and when people tend to be indoors. Mm-hmm. We may find, again, that, you know, come that time, I'm now completely switching up, you know, and revising our plan to how people come into the building. But anyway,
But I think, again, Brendan, to Pat's point, a plan is a plan, and it's just that, a plan, and it needs to be adaptable and changeable as, as things develop and what you see on the ground. Stan?
I wanted to ask, we have some time before our July 1st opening, if we do open on July 1st. Would it make sense to at least send a link to all of our members and ask them to complete a survey of what would be acceptable, what would not be acceptable to each of them, and we'd have some statistics about how people might react to requiring a vaccine card, requiring a recent test, or other things like that to help ensure the safety of the entire group. It could be, we could do a fairly extensive online survey, through SurveyMonkey or something like that, or Google, and see where our members stand on this.
That's actually not a bad idea. So I had advocated for an August 1st because that's where we were supposed to have been at until the governor switched things. So we're not, I didn't want to be in a position. City Hall, I know they're opening July 1st, but they're also kind of a different animal, right? Altogether, because people aren't going in there for recreational stuff. They're going in there because they have a very specific business item that they need to take care of. And not to say that that doesn't happen here, especially when we're dealing with outreach services. But I think it's just a different approach down there. So anyway, I didn't want to get strong-armed into, opening up in July without, at least feeling out the reopening plan. That is something that we can do. What I would probably do for July's newsletter, I want to include some, the most important aspects of this reopening plan, and then maybe in addition to creating, a survey online, also maybe having a paper survey that could be included with it. Mm-hmm. Just to hear from our members, because I feel like there's, if we learned anything from the vaccination registration and all that stuff, we are still dealing with a considerable tech gap. And to kind of go back to that really quickly, actually, Bree had brought up a good point, which is this may be an opportunity, too, for us to get people registered for the vaccine who haven't already, to encourage that. So when people are coming in through our doors, as we're talking to people and as people are, slowly but surely trickling in, we may be able to secure vaccinations for people who just, for one reason or another didn't get it, but now feel differently about it. Because there's a lot of people that, were waiting to see how this vaccine would play out. I know plenty of people that didn't want to jump into getting a, brand new vaccine for various reasons. So this could be one other outlet for us to secure vaccinations for our participants.
So I want to make sure I'm on the same page, because I saw August. I heard you say July 1st. You've clarified, right? August, you're not doing this until August 1st, correct?
Yeah, I keep on saying August 1st, and I've really got to beat that out of my head because August 1st is a Sunday, and I know I'll catch a lot of hell for that. So August 2nd, and I had talked to the mayor about that because I was a little bit nervous without knowing. I was just in the beginning of creating a reopening plan when all of a sudden it was just, it was a week within me trying to formulate a reopening plan that the governor announced that it was going to be changed to May 29th. And so then that completely switched things up.
So August 2nd is our date.
August 2nd is the deadline that I've got. A lot of people are calling and asking when we're opening, and I don't want to go much beyond a month beyond when City Hall reopens, because I feel like a lot of people are be like, why the hell is it taking, and I probably already will get some people who think that this is too extreme, waiting until August 1st, but nonetheless, but anyway, yeah. So, but the mayor gave that the approval, so we're good on August 2nd. Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to be clear.
Brendan, just real quick, I wasn't sure what you had said originally about asking for vaccination cards. It just rang a bell when Stan mentioned it. Was that something Bree didn't want to do, or was that just something you weren't comfortable doing?
It was something that I didn't feel comfortable doing. And when I had spoken to the mayor, I had said, unless, you feel otherwise, I'm going to shy away from collecting vaccination cards just because of what I've seen happen with other COAs. But, again, if she told me, today that, I'm not down with the reopening plan, you need to change, of course, that would be, followed. But this went to her office, and there were no revisions other than the language about the masks. So.
And so the only reason that I brought that up is that if you are able to do this survey, which I agree is a great idea, and probably another reason why we need to wait till August 2nd, you want to see the results of this survey. Just be careful about asking questions you don't want the answer to.
I know. Well, yeah, so that's tricky, right? The timeline of it. I think it's a great idea, right, to get that survey out there and hear from our members. But the way our newsletter goes out, right? So I'm setting up for July. We're setting it out Friday, and then that's going to get to us within the next week, right? So I have to have, I feel like it would be a disservice to our folks if I didn't have some kind of formula. We're going to be reaching out to people over the next several weeks, like our participants who had groups here, just to tell them what's happening. So we're giving them a heads up. But I didn't want to fall into, hey, here's the August newsletter and here's the reopening plan, because I think a lot of people are going to sit there and go, what? So you're just announcing a reopening and then only giving us the reopening plan in, at the start of August. So I didn't want to fall into that position. So, the timing might be kind of tricky. I'd love to hear from our members, sure. It's just when we open August 2nd, if we do have an overwhelming response, again, that document is fluid, right? If we find that 90% of respondents are going to say, hey, we really want to see a mask mandate, then I can go back to the mayor and say, hey, I think I need to revise this based on what our participants are saying, and that we need to, make those changes. But I think it's a great idea.
And as you know, with any survey, the shorter the better. I mean, if there's like 5 questions, that would be great.
Yeah.
If it would be longer than that, people aren't going to take the time, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's one of the things that I didn't want to go. The reopening plan is a short document, but it's also one of those things that, and I've seen it and I've kind of compared it to other COAs. It's about what most folks are doing, because I think if you have such extensive documentation on it, you may lose people on some of that information. So short but sweet, I think, is kind of an approach, at least with that. But Stan, were you raising your hand? I'm sorry.
Yeah, one important question I think might be, which would not, which may not, be everybody's choice, would be to find out how many people would not want to come into the building if there wasn't, vaccine information and mask requirements. As opposed to, what they would do, ask them what they wouldn't do also for that situation. Because it may turn out that a significant portion of the members will say, we're not coming in under those circumstances.
Sure. So if we get this out.
Sorry, Brendan. Could that flip around, though, to the positive and just say something like, what would it take? What would make you feel comfortable coming back into the senior center? Something to that effect on the positive. Joe?
I guess the one thing I would ask is that whatever survey gets, I'm assuming somebody will draft a survey and everybody on the board will get a chance to comment on it in terms of the questions. Because having done surveys in academic environments, it's, wording can really trip things up, and you need to be really careful. And people who think it's just really easy to put a survey together are the ones who usually put them together where they're not, they're either very difficult to analyze the results or there's some bias built in or something like that. So as long as we can review things before they go out, that's fine.
Okay. So yeah, if that went out, so we're aiming for the 18th. I can draft up, through like 4 or 5 questions, maybe. One, just, asking people their thoughts on the reopening plan, and then maybe getting into, what people feel comfortable with, activities and events. And I can send something out to you guys. But if I want that information to get out, like, so the publisher LPI, generally what they end up doing is if I submit it on Friday before noon, we get the newsletters to us sometime almost like a week later. Although last month, I think they were in 4 days after submitting it. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. But I would say at the very least, we'd probably end up with the newsletters by the 24th or the 25th.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'll send you guys, a draft of some survey questions, and Joe, maybe you can, use your expertise to kind of,
Sure. Yeah, we just want to make sure that yes means yes and no means no on the answers. Okay, is there anything else we need to cover? That was a lot.
Yeah, I know. And Louise, I am going to send this link out to Easthampton Media right after we're done with the meeting. So.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Joe?
Second.
And second by Stan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Great to see you all. Thank you.
Have a good
Here,
day.
next meeting, July 20th.
Bye.